Is it working? Okay, cool. So today I shall present my presentation on gangs in America, specifically the Bloods and Crips. And here's my student ID. Wait. Okay, there we go. I am uploading this to YouTube, so I don't really want to show my real ID. Let me see if I could. You can see the bottom. I will submit the picture of my ID, my real ID, and this ID, but I just prefer not to expose my information on the internet like that. um, but okay. Anyways, so gangs in America. Okay, so the Bloods. The Bloods are known as the original Blood family, and sometimes Pyrus. Um, Piru is the original street the Bloods was created on, and that's in Compton, California. Uh, they're still pretty prevalent there to this day. Like they still have a massive influence in Compton. Um, they were originally formed in the 1970s, and it was primarily created to counteract the Crips gang because of their massive numbers in the West Coast. And the color that represents their set is red. Okay. And the bottom's a picture of what Bloods would look like. This is just a South Park drawing interpretation of it, but you know. So how they began exactly. So the Bloods history because of um because of because of how because of them being created to counteract the Crips, their history is pretty tied in with the Crips. So yeah, when it was initially created was because after a concert in Curtis Mayfield, um members of the Crips killed Robert Ballou Jr. during during an armed robbery, and the reason that they were robbing him was because they wanted his jacket, which is kind of crazy that they killed him over that, but that's gang life. Um, the murder sparked many smaller games in Compton to come together and all unify to create the Bloods. And it's what really led their whole rivalry that they have now. It's kind of like um back in World War I, whenever that Archduke was killed, and it just set off this whole chain reaction and this big war. It's the exact same way, just smaller scale. So on the left is someone doing a blood gang sign, and they have many other gang signs. And on the right is the memorial of Robert Ballou Jr. Okay, so the Bloods and their drug trafficking. So in the 1980s, the Bloods began distributing crack cocaine to make profit, and this became their main source of income, and it's what helped push them to expand eastward into, well, the East Coast. So they're really prominent here in the East Coast. New York, there's a big they have a big influence in New York, um New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and so their main source of income currently is usually the sale of crack cocaine and heroin. Um, but aside from drugs, they also engage in other criminal activities for monetary value. Could be theft, prostitution, robberies, money laundering. I mean, they'd have to money launder if they're selling drugs and their other criminal activities. Um, so on the bottom left is a picture I found of a blood gang member that was um arrested for drug possession with intent to sale, and he was pulled over, and yep, they just found the drugs on him. And on the right is a picture of crack cocaine. Yummy. So the Crips is another gang founded in California. Um, and they're specifically founded in Los Angeles. The color that represents them is usually blue. Um, but they've been known to try to stray away from just only wearing the color blue because it puts kind of a target on them for law enforcement to suspect them of any illegal activity. So the gang was initially created in the 60s, um, and they're a nationwide gang, just like the Bloods are, with many small groups in different places around America. It's kind of like they're like chapters, kind of like yeah, just they're just like kind of like chapters, just smaller subsections of the gang. Um, and the Crips creation wasn't just because of another gang that they were created, like the Bloods. It was more for a different reason. So the origin of the Crips. So they were created by Raymond Washington. Like I said, back in the 60s. Um, Raymond Washington was heavily inspired by the Black Panther Party when he was 12 years old, and the Black Panther Party was created after the Watts riots in 1965. So, um, riots like help people focus, like older people focus on and the Black Panther Party help older people focus on um stopping um kind of like all the police brutality and everything that was going on unjustly with the police and African Americans. But for the youth, they took a more different approach, many of them, and they just created gangs. And this is what inspired Raymond Washington to create um, the Crips because of the people that he admired. He saw that their movement and decided to join in his own way. So on the bottom left is Raymond Washington, and on the bottom right is the Black Panther Party, one of their protests. I thought that was pretty interesting. I didn't know that before this, but it's pretty interesting that the Black Panther Party had that influence on him to create the gang. I just thought that was interesting. So the Crips' involvement in drugs, just like the Bloods, they also engage in the selling of narcotics and stuff um, for their source of income. So in the 1970s, they were initially involved in the production and sale of PCP and and amphetamines. Sorry. And then what really made them blow up, just like the Blood Gang, was crack cocaine and its boom in the 1980s. And the whole crack epidemic and all that. Um, the Crips in the late 1980s and early 1990s began actually buying their drug supplies from the Medellin cartel to get it wholesale, and there was many FBI F no say F it was many FBI raids um on these sales between the Medellin cartel and the Crips and stopping all that. Um, Currently the Crips still make much of their income from drug sale, but also like the Bloods, they engage in other activities like prostitution, um, theft, robbery, and all that stuff to make their income. Um, so on the bottom left is a picture of PCP. They look like little Smarties. In the middle is a picture of methamphetamine. Um, and on the bottom right is a picture of Pablo Escobar, who used to be the leader of the Medellin cartel before he was killed. And fun fact, actually, I'm Colombian, and my family is from Medellin, and they grew up experiencing the whole Pablo Escobar bad drug thing that was going down there. And they said it was pretty scary, actually. They said there was a lot of shootings on the street and just a bunch of scary stuff like that. A lot of people, being a lot of people in my mom's family and my dad's family being like addicted to drugs back then, cocaine. Ooh, cocaine, really getting addicted to cocaine. And I don't know. They always tell me bad stuff about it. A lot of people like to glorify Pablo Escobar, but I've only heard bad things. I just thought that was interesting. Um, the Bloods and the Crips feud. So their feud is still going on to this day, although not as bad as it was in the 80s. Um, but it's still going on to this day. Um, it's led to many gang-related deaths between the two. Just there's a lot of killings between the two. Everybody claiming their territory and stuff. People stepping on their territory, them getting killed. It's just a lot of that going on. Business regarding their drug sales and stuff. That's led to a lot of their deaths between each other. Um, and so after the death of the Crips leader, um, a lot of people in the gang and outside of the gang believe that the gang had become something different. It become worse than it was before because they didn't have that control that it had with the leader. The leader kind of held them together. So now it's all just branched off, and sometimes their Crips are fighting Crips, Bloods are fighting Bloods. They're just fighting each other inside their own gang. They don't have that glue to hold them together. So Black Lives Matter and the death of Nipsey Hussle did lead to a somewhat unification for the two groups, even though uh, in Nipsey Hussle's case, it was just a short time period where this happened, because after his death, they decided that we should just come together and, you know, just memorialize Nipsey Hussle, because he was very closely tied with the Crips and the Bloods for that fact, and they just thought it would have been better to put the guns down for a little bit, just be peaceful while this death had occurred and stuff. They just felt that it was just wrong to fight during a time like that when they're all grieving. Um, so the Black Lives Matter protests in Baltimore specifically after the death of Freddie Gray led to a truce between the Bloods and the Crips in that area. Um, and another area. Oh, not mean to do that. How do I go back? Sorry. And in other areas where Black Lives Matter protests and all this unification happened between them. So on the bottom left is a picture of Nipsey Hussle in a cool Lakers jersey. I like that jersey actually. Um, and on the bottom right is a picture of Freddie Gray, the man that was shot in Baltimore and killed by the law enforcement. And next to him is a picture of George Floyd, obviously the one that really exploded Black Lives Matter during COVID. Um, So the Crips and Bloods in popular media. So these two gangs slowly and surely seeped their way into popular media through many ways. It was through music, through movies, through art, through just things like that. Like a lot of famous, well, not famous, but popular graffiti artists are Crips or Bloods. They just express themselves to put up, instead of just putting up gang signs, they'll make memorials of Nipsey Hussle or memorial for George Floyd, and they just all come together. Um, but in movies such as Boys in the Hood and Colors and Menace to Society too. I mean, Menace to Society. They glorify the gang culture. They really put it front and center and show what it's like for both sides of the gangs. And not only in Hollywood, but like I said, in music also. Artists like Snoop Dogg. They have a lot of lyrics that he has a lot of lyrics that promotes gang activity, and specifically Snoop Dogg supports the Crips. He's mentioned it before with him. I'm sure you've seen the videos of him Crip walking and all that. And if you there's even films like the film, the NWA film that shows him younger and him being a part of the Crips. Um, and there's other artists, Lil Wayne, Nipsey Hussle was an artist. Kendrick Lamar doesn't really support gang activity, and doesn't support either sides, but he definitely does talk about the issues regarding both the Bloods and the Crips. Um, there's a song named what's the song called? What is that song called? Anyways, there's a song that really talks about just how the gang violence between the two gangs, specifically the Bloods and the Crips, have affected his childhood and his life, and how he even has a quote in the song Mad City where he says, "If Pyrus and Crips all got along, they probably got me down by the end of the song," saying that like he was just he just can't see them getting along, and if they did, then he'd probably be dead if they got along. It's pretty crazy. But anyways, on the bottom left is a picture of Snoop Dogg at his I don't remember which Super Bowl performance this was, but I think this was 2 years ago, I think. Pretty sure. But you see he's wearing the blue on, representing the Crips, front and center at the Super Bowl. That's wild. Bold statement. It's kind of a nice outfit though. I like the glasses. But yeah, that's Snoop Dogg. And then on the bottom right is a picture for the cover of Boys in the Hood. Um, I still haven't seen the movie yet, but I've heard that it's pretty good. But yeah. And then this guy right here is was in NWA, and he experienced a lot of the gang violence happening with the Crips and the Bloods back in the day. But yep. These are my references. Okay. And that's it. Thank you.